Dr. Hussein Soramhoba there, wrapping up that briefing, updating on electricity generation performance following ASCOM implementing stage 6 rolling blackouts. And of course, you should have had him when he opened that briefing just a couple of minutes ago, when he actually expressed a regret over disappointment caused by these rolling blackouts. Of course, he's saying that they've lost 5 units at Majuba power station. About 3,000 megawatts went out on Saturday, and he's also saying that ASCOM is in difficult financial situation. Of course, going further to say that they've suffered a setback on the 1st of February. Their maintenance plan is currently at 7,500 megawatts. And but they are saying that they are actually making sure that they are retaining the units that have lost power, and citing the issue to technical difficulties. And Dr. Hussein Soramhoba also saying that there's absolutely no sabotage amid these stage 6 rolling blackouts. And he's saying that they want to eliminate load shedding by the end of this week, and he's also promising the nation that just watch the space. Load shedding will be a thing of the past, but that's a promise by ASCOM as well, that really expressed disappointment, apologizing to the nation to say that it had to be done in order to sort of return the lost units, and they are really working hard to really get those lights back on. But we will definitely be dwelling more on that going forward. And of course, joining me to shed some light on these questions is Karabo Mohonyana, an energy expert with a deep understanding of South Africa's power landscape. Karabo will help us unpack the reasons behind ASCOM's latest struggles, among those that we've just had in that briefing, and of course exploring the implications of continued load shedding and discuss potential solutions to this perennial problem. Karabo, a very good afternoon to you, and of course a very good afternoon to you as a viewer at home. My name is Mahikeng. You are welcome here at the week ahead. Karabo, let's dwell on this. You've just had that briefing, and thanks indeed for joining us. Can you help us understand what's behind ASCOM's latest announcement of stage 6 load shedding? What's causing this setback in addition to what we've just had?
Good afternoon, Marigetla, and good afternoon to the viewers. I think because this conversation is also not a new one, a lot of the reasons that were given related to yesterday's afternoon announcement on stage 3 was because of the multiple unit trips at Majuba and Medupi power stations. And then this morning, in the early hours at around 1 a.m., we get the announcement of stage 6. Again, multiple unit trips now at Camden power station. But also they were speaking about just how it was essential for us to go into stage 6 to help us replenish reserves, but also prepare for the week ahead. And I think in terms of the conversation on maintenance, which has been a big part of it, control systems, maintenance, and they say that this is a technical issue, it begs the question of what a lot of the generation recovery plan really is meant to do. And Dr. Nyati spoke mainly about the leadership component, the discipline component, and just focusing on the basics. But that's quite problematic because we all know the governance issues in ESCOM, but we also know infrastructural and maintenance issues have been a big thing. So how is that a generation recovery plan has not focused on maintenance, has not focused on the technical and control aspect, but they also mentioned that the auxiliary issues are not necessarily part of the plan, and auxiliary issues like the water system, the compressors that help with the air management, how are such important aspects of electricity generation not a part of a recovery plan, considering the infrastructural and maintenance issues that ESCOM and just our infrastructure has had holistically for the past couple of years?
And you talk about ESCOM chairperson, Mr. Nyati. I mean, He's talking about a 2-year recovery plan there, and he says that some of these elements, including making sure that they have the right leaders to execute the plan, and he also talks about the fact that they need to focus on the basics. Some of the things, according to him, were not done before.
Yeah, he does. And I think that's quite concerning because I think even when Minister Ramokgopa was brought into place and this new board was brought into place and, you know, the CEO, Dan, was also brought into place, that was already a leadership change in itself, or at least we hope so as the public, that this new leadership shift would have brought newer strategies, better plans, and better implementation strategies going forward. So it means that, one, they still have to deal with the governance issues, which is fine. We know that Eskom has had governance issues for the longest time, but you cannot just focus on leadership and governance and forget about the infrastructure issues, the fiscus challenges. There's a bigger problem with Eskom. You need to have a dual strategy in terms of coming in. It's leadership, but it's also the infrastructure, the money, and the actual things that tend to focus on the technical and the maintenance components. And it means that there was a shortfall in this 2-year plan. It just focused on the people and the governance and forgetting that there's a bigger plan on infrastructure, technical capacity, operationalization of Eskom, considering the amount of, you know, impact and setbacks that this institution has actually faced.
I mean, Dr. Hossein Ramokgopa earlier saying that Eskom is in a difficult financial situation. I wonder, Karabo, how does this latest development fit into the broader context of Eskom's challenges? Is this a one-off issue or part of a larger problem?
It is definitely part of a larger problem. Eskom has not been able to, you know, manage, considering the corruption components, but been able to manage finance as well. And that's why the whole municipalities are not paying Eskom issues are emerging. It's an entire systematic issue. As an entity, Eskom is not able to generate its own funds, considering it almost operates like a business because you're charging consumers for this service or the provision of electricity. Unfortunately, Eskom is not generating any profit. And even if it's not supposed to generate a profit, it's not generating enough income to be able to assist with its own operationalization. Hence why they had to go to National Treasury to ask for more funding to be able to, you know, action a lot of these plans. And that begs question in terms of the financial components of Eskom, also another issue that we need to deal with. If we're saying municipalities, how do we deal with this entire system? How is it that, you know, as an entity where you're supposed to be generating funds because there's taxpayers, money that is coming forward, but there's also consumer financing that is coming forward. How is that we still need to run to Treasury to still maintain our systems, to still operate Eskom well? So it's a bigger issue. And unfortunately, we're going to still see the emergence of this becoming problematic within our energy supply system.
And then the minister saying that there is no sabotage at all. Are you convinced?
Yeah, I mean, we'll give them the benefit of the doubt that there is no sabotage. I think it speaks to a bigger issue of planning. I think we need to, you know, initially when Minister Ramokgopa came into place, he was coming into, you know, to deal with the issues from a public frustration point of view. I think he needs to shift as a minister to start focusing on long-term sustainable plans for our energy system. We can no longer operate as if we're responding to emergencies. We need to now operate as, how do we create an energy supply system that has a sense of direction? Yes, actions out, the energy action plan that the president has, you know, spoken about, but there needs to also be a sense of direction because currently the minister's kind of signing in on everything. There's green hydrogen exploration, there's nuclear energy, there's gas expansion, there's the coal power plants. So it's like, where exactly are we going on a long-term basis? What is our energy system as a country and what is fitting for us as a country? And currently it doesn't seem like it. It means that it almost looks like we are now doing recovery plans, we're doing emergency plans, we're not looking at our energy system as a long-term commitment that we need to ultimately work towards.
Then, Garabo, which makes me wonder, what role do you think maintenance or lack thereof has played in this latest setback?
It's played such a big part. You know, historically, in terms of just Eskom itself and the infrastructure, the maintenance component has been neglected, and that's speaks to the governance and the management, but also the corruption issues. Funds were diverted from maintenance to people's pockets. So we still have a long way of maintaining grid systems, maintaining the infrastructure. That's still a big part of the work that needs to be done, meaning financing is needed, but municipalities are not paying for the financing and ESCOM doesn't have the money to do that. So it's an entire cycle of issues. So maintenance is going to be extremely crucial, especially if we want to expand grids and bring in things like renewable energy and that kind of thing. We do need to deal with the current infrastructure, and currently it's failing. It's unable to also just handle the demand, and it's concerning considering we're about to go into winter. The demand is about to increase. If things like water systems and compressors are not aligned, it means we're going to be dealing with load shedding in the winter season.
Certainly, and I'm sure you'd agree with me that there are economic implications of continued load shedding for South Africans. How does it affect businesses? Let's talk about that. Industries and ordinary citizens in the street.
It has a massive impact. So one, a lot of, whether it's the bigger businesses or small scale businesses, we need operationalization. We are a country that, from an economic development perspective, we have a lot of economic inequality. So you still have people who operate in informal sectors or smaller and medium businesses who need, power supply to be able to continue. There was a lot of businesses that shut down as a result of, the load shedding. And it's important for us to understand we cannot experience another economic setback. Schools need to operate, hospitals need to operate. We really need a functioning economy and we need a functioning society. And energy access is really at the heart of that. It speaks to livelihoods, it speaks to people's daily operationalization, and it's going to be super important for us to have it. We cannot have another blow. Unemployment is at an all-time high. We really need progress in terms of energy access and sustainable energy access.
Let's just finally, Karabo, what are some of the immediate steps that ESCOM, government and other stakeholders can take to address the current crisis and prevent future setbacks?
I think, let me start with government. I think government really needs to make sure that the plan is not, like I said, it's not just an emergency plan. Because the problem with emergency plans and recovery plans is that they're short-term in nature. We had the 10 months that, obviously they're taking so much pride within. We give them credit for that. But what happens after the short-term energy access, or the 300 days that we've been celebrating, is that you then have bigger issues to deal with. We don't know how long the stage 6 is going to happen. Yes, they've said they want it to end by the end of this week, but the official announcement is until further notice. So we need to really push government to have a proper plan. We need to start exploring decentralized systems through renewable energy that is more affordable, and not necessarily having government wanting to tax people even for other systems. So how is it that we incorporate different things like decentralized energy systems for people? How do we make sure that homes are able to then still even exist with that? Because the energy mix that they present is great, but it needs to be actualized in homes. So if it means that we are seeing people using solar, people using different systems to help then reduce the load of our current power supply, then we need to start getting into that. But that's also an affordability question. That is a money question. And in this country, only a few can access such things. So it needs to then be actualized into government. We need to put pressure for long-term sustainable plans.
Karabo, thanks so much for your insights. We appreciate it. That was Karabo Mahonyan, an energy expert, shedding some light on these questions around the energy crisis that South Africa faces. We now bring in SABC News reporter Calvin Dludla, who is standing by for us to get some reaction in Vilakazi Street in Soweto. A very good afternoon to you, Calvin. What are the people saying there?
Good afternoon to you, Mahikeng, and to our SABC viewers at home. Yes, indeed, we are here in Soweto, Vilakazi Street. To be specific, you would know that here in Vilakazi Street, there are a lot of businesses here operating here, and most of them, when we came here with Gabi, they were closed. And when we tried to engage some of the owners and patrons there, they told us that load shedding had kicked in, but fortunately for them, electricity is back, and most of them are trying to to open up here, but as you can see, Gabi will show you, there are so few people here. I think they left because of the load shedding. That would mean that businesses would be affected. So let me introduce one of the ladies here who is working here. We spoke to her earlier, and then she told us that she is frustrated about what is happening here. Mama, thank you very much for your time. Load shedding has kicked in stage 6. Most people were surprised about it. How do you feel about it?
Oh, surely it's affecting us totally. Like today is on a Sunday. We never knew that it will take long like that. We could not iron. We just went to church just like that. So now coming here, I forgot to charge my machine, as you can see, the swiping machine in the business. So now some people, they don't carry cash here in Vilakazi, so they need a machine. So the money is just leaving me because they don't have any machine to swipe. It's really affecting us, you know. It's
not the first time that we are experiencing a load shedding, especially stage 6. How did you cope before?
Before, at least when we know before, at least it's better. When at least we know that the power gonna go or 3 o'clock, we prepare before. Like we cook, we just put food ready. But now it's taking too much time. Stage 6 is too much time. It's affecting us.
So now you know that ESCOM implemented stage 6. Actually, it pushed from stage 3 to stage 6. Now your business, I see you are working here, but I don't see a lot of people here. It's a threat to you.
No, now they are not coming really because, our customers depend with the Sakumzi.
Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
This is a Sakumzi restaurant, and they come to have lunch there, and then to cook the food, they use the electricity, you understand? So sometimes if they never opened, it was actually like in the morning it was closed. They have just opened now. So customers will start coming, we believe that.
So if the stores close because of load shedding, which means that it's also affecting you as well?
It's affecting me also because we come here to make money, and if we close, we never make, our children will suffer because there's no food again for them.
Your message to the Minister of Electricity, Dr. Khosienzo Ramokgopa?
Okay, my message to him, sir, just do something better, because we are really affected. At least implement it more. If you can have like stage 3 or something like that, yeah, we understand. But at least do something better, sir, I beg you.
Okay, thank you very much for your time. I don't have to keep you long because I see you are very busy. Gabi Njogweni will just keep on showing you that people have started to arrive here at Vilakazi Street. I'm trying to navigate and go through to Sakumzi restaurants. That is where I am planning to engage some of the patrons there, some of the community members and people who are working there. Because when I spoke to them earlier, Mahikeng, they told me that they are worried about their jobs. They don't think that they will survive this time because last time when they experienced the load shedding, some of them were retrenched. So we have to engage some of them. Sanibonani baba.
Sanibona.
Siyaphila njani?
Siyaphila.
Sibuya SABC njengamanje siyanibona nihleli la ngaphandle ugesi siyazi ukuthi uqeda kubuya kun affecta kanjani lokho?
Eish, kude kusebenzisa kabuhlungu lokho ngoba manje sisebenza ngawo ugesi futhi izinto eziningi kahle kahle sizenza la ngaphakathi e-restaurant edinga ugesi. So isikhathi esiningi sisebenza kabuhlungu yikho nje ngingakusho lokho bhodwa.
Let me also introduce a lady here. Sawubona sisi, ngiyakubona nawe uyihlalele nje la niphumlile namhlanje. Ugesi ubuye nini?
Ubuye manje ngo-12.
Okay, kunisebenzisa kabuhlungu kangakanani ukuthi ningabi nogesi la ikakhulukazi ngoba kujwayele ukugcwala ivakashi la?
Kusebenzisa kabuhlungu ngoba amabhiya wethu agcina achise ngoba ama-fridge angeke akhona ukuthi aba-right wonke ngenxa ye-load shedding.
Akuniphathi kabi yini ukuthi mhlawumbe njengoba kunganagesi abantu angeke beze bagcwale lana, mhlawumbe lokho kungagcina ukuthi mhlawumbe abanye beni begcine bephelelwa yitoro?
Hayi, kusiphatha kabi kakhulu ngoba abanye mhlawumbe bafuna ukuplaka amanzi babe bageze bazokwazi ukuthi basivakashele kahle, so bayadelay abantu abaningi.
Ungathi nje ku-ESCOM ngalesimo?
Hayi, sicela ukuthi angazi mhlawumbe bawocima maybe ebusuku sesilele sikwazi ukuthi amabhizinisi akwazi ukuthi aqhubeke nje kahle.
Thank you very much. My last guest will be one of the security officials here. Thank you very much, sir, for your time. I see that you are trying by all means to make sure that this place is protected. How is load shedding affecting you here in this business?
No, ilo shedding yasimosha kamampela ngoba manje nawe mongathi uyazibhekela nje uyabona ukuthi amatafula empty abulala ibhizinisi yethu nangapha abulala ini ama-TV abulala yonke into ngapha amanzi bese kuba ilo shedding isibulala kakhulu when it comes to business.
So kujwayele ukugcwala la kunalokhu mangabe kunogesi.
Kujwayele ukugcwala kakhulu futhi. Yeah, ngalesikhathi nje sekugcwele.
So lokho mhlambe kuyanithikameza nani njengabasebenzi bala.
Yeah, iyasithikameza kakhulu futhi. Iyasithikameza. Ngoba nathi end of the day kwamele sihole mari sizohola kanjani maku empty kanje.
Okay, siyabonga kakhulu. Thank you very much. Mahikeng, as you have heard, people are so worried about the implementation of stage 6 load shedding, saying that it's a threat for them. As you have heard, the lady that I spoke to, the first guest, told us that this is a threat because they don't know how are they going to survive after this, because last time when load shedding kicked in, they lost the jobs, and he told us that her business depends on what happens here on this restaurants next to me. If this restaurant doesn't operate, that means she will not have customers. I went to Sakomza Restaurants, one of the familiar spots here in Orlando West. They told us as SABC News that this is affecting their business. As you have heard, those ladies that were sitting here, they are sitting outside. They were not working, just relaxing, telling us that it's because the business is not doing well. People are not coming in. The security official that I just spoke to as I'm wrapping now, he told us that this is affecting business. People are not coming in, and it's a threat for them because at the end of the day, they need to get paid at the end of the month so that they can be able to feed their families. For now, back to you in studio.
Yeah, quite inevitable. Businesses bearing the brunt amid this stage 6 load shedding. And for some more reaction on the implementation of stage 6 load shedding by Eskom, we now bring in our reporter Tabiso Moss, who is standing by for us in Mahikeng in the northwest. Tabiso, how have some residents reacted?
Good afternoon to you, Mahikeng, and our viewers at home. We are at one of the business establishments here in Mahikeng. We are at Soweto village, to be specific, here in Mahikeng in the Northwest Province. As load shedding is a major talking point this morning. It has been a major talking point since late yesterday afternoon after Eskom announcing that it is implementing stage 3 load shedding. And when we woke up this morning, there was a statement that was released by Eskom, or an announcement just before 2 a.m. Telling us that they are ramping up load shedding to stage 6, and that's the situation currently. And here, as my camera person is panning the camera, just to show you how big is this building, this business establishment. So you can see there is a tavern here. There is also a tire shop and also a tuck shop on the other side in this building. So it is owned by Waltangwa. We are going to bring him into the conversation in a moment. So there is also a restaurant here. That's where they prepare food for the patrons who are coming here. And on the other side of the building, there is also a hair salon there. So some of the business owners are renting here in this building. That's how big is this building. So let me speak to Waltangwa. Like I'm saying, he's the business owner here. He's just going to talk to us about the impact of load shedding on his business. And earlier on, when we spoke off air, he told us that he had to retrench some of the workers, or some of the workers had to go because the business is no longer doing well as it is used to. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon, Dade Walter. Just firstly, your reaction to the implementation of load shedding, stage 6 after 20 days. And remember before, actually it was last month, we also had load shedding after more than 10 months of no load shedding. We are at stage 6 now. Just your reaction to that announcement of implementation of load shedding.
Yes, I've lost a lot of customers. I'm happy that you are here. This load shedding issue, it gave us a big impact in all the activities that is taking place here. As you can see, the TVs are blown off, the fridges are all off. I've tried to maintain some of the fridges, but I can't cope. And most of the workers, I was having 35 workers. Most of them, they have retreated. I'm left now with 3 workers.
From 35 to
From
3.
35, I'm left now with 3.
That's how bad business
As
is.
you can see the place now. I bought a generator of 45 kVA. I can't cope with diesel. You get it? We can't cope with diesel.
So how long have you been running this business here?
We have been running this business since 2007 up to now. And my records are good in SARS, wherever I go. So I don't have a problem with all this. My problem here is load shedding. And when there's no electricity, this boy, the 10, you can see outside there. If you can turn your camera, you will see outside. They cut the cables, they chop out the cables. They blow all the lights out. So I tend now to be buying lights, TVs again, doing everything like a new business. So I'm out. I don't have nothing anymore. We are out. Look at how empty is the place.
So it's Sunday. One would believe that some people are still at church and maybe they will come here later. Are you saying that the business is so bad that even you're used to having people around this time of the day on a Sunday?
By 10 o'clock, this place is always full. The saloon is full for kids. All activities here, always. Workers were good, everything. So I don't know, load shedding blow us off. I won't lie to you.
So let me just speak to us about where the point where you had to let some of the workers go because the business is no longer doing well. It's not booming like it used to. How did that happen? Just to talk to us about the period. Did that happen in a space of 12 months, 2 years? Just maybe tell us more about that.
Last year, November, these boys, they stole the cables. My metal box, everything, they collected all because of load shedding. There was no light. They collect everything. So everybody left till today as we are talking like this.
So even you're saying that the business has been affected to an extent that you also speak about the crime that happens during load shedding, that there are some people who are stealing cables. Does that mean some of the patrons that were coming here were concerned about their safety because of load shedding?
Of load shedding. Many customers, they can't sit on darkness. They decide to left. They say, Walter, we accept with you. You are buying too much diesel for us. But if you say you can't buy anymore, it means you are working for that. They left.
You own a generator. You are using it as a backup when when the electricity is off.
Yeah.
So like today, for an example, in Mahikeng, between 4 and 8, will not have electricity for a good 4 hours. It's Sunday. So just talk to us about your struggles to ensure that you buy enough diesel to run generator when the electricity go off.
I've lost a lot of money, so I shut down the generator. I can't operate it anymore. Diesel, 25 liters of diesel is 1,002. So I can't be, how much do I make before buying this? How much do I pay workers? You know, South African, the system of the country, the law, you must pay workers accordingly.
Thank you.
There's no way I can dodge it.
Thank you so much. And Datewal Tangwa is the business owner. He's owning this establishment. Like I said earlier on, that this establishment is very big, where some business owners are also renting here. One of them being a salon owner here, but also the tuck shop. He rented out the tuck shop. It is owned by another person, or the other person is running the business of a tuck shop on the other side. Just talking to us, painting a very bleak picture about the impact of load shedding on his business, Waltangwa. And with that, it's back to you in studio, Mahikeng.
Tabiso there. Thanks so much indeed. And we are now shifting focus to this. Today, we are shining the spotlight on Meetings Africa 2025, the premier Pan-African business events trade show taking place from tomorrow until Tuesday here in Johannesburg. This annual gathering brings together tourism boards, convention bureaus, events planners, and business leaders to showcase Africa's diverse destinations and position the continent as a premier business hub. Joining us today are two esteemed guests. First, we have Noni Kubega, Head of Conventions and Events Bureau at the Gauteng Tourism Authority, who's joining us via Teams meeting. Noni will share her insights on the significance of Meetings Africa 2025 and its impact on the tourism industry. In studio, we have Lebogang Lekojani, founder of Rethink Africa, a young e-commerce entrepreneur who will highlight the challenges faced by the entrepreneurs like himself and share his thoughts on how Meetings Africa 2025 can help address these challenges. A very good afternoon to you both. Thanks so much for joining us. Noni, let me start with you, and thanks so much for joining us indeed. Can you start by telling us more about Meetings Africa 2025? What can attendees expect from this year's event?
Good day, everyone. Meetings Africa 2025, we all know that it showcases the capability of the continent. It's not only about South Africa, but it's the whole of Africa, showing the meeting sector. And we will be showcasing what we can offer in the venues side of things, where in case of hosting, and also that can lead to the continent's economic impact. So the buyers can expect a lot of meetings. We've got international buyers that we've invited to come to the destination, and those buyers are people that have already meetings, conferences and exhibitions that they can host in destinations, and they're looking for new venues. And we'll be showcasing that. So Meetings Africa is that platform where the attendees can expect to meet with the buyers. So it's a business-to-business exhibitions. So we've got that particular platform. We've got a lot of networking opportunities where professionals in the industry can discuss trends and solutions on how to go forward in order to host events in their destinations. We also have the Bond Day that starts tomorrow. We call it the Bond Day because that's where we bond in terms of discussing and also training the industry, making sure that we're on the same page. So all in all, we are promoting what we call business tourism, and we will also be sharing knowledge and best practices during that time through stakeholder engagements.
It promises to be one of those events with a lot to offer. Lebogang, let me come to you. I mean, as a young e-commerce entrepreneur, talk to us about some of the challenges you've faced growing your business, and how do you think Meetings Africa 2025 can help address those challenges?
Hi, Mahe. So I think what's important before we get into me being an e-commerce entrepreneur, I think we need to understand that I'm a retailer first, right? And then e-commerce basically enables enables the retail space for us for digitization, right? So that we can have access to different markets.
Definitely.
But as a retail entrepreneur, so the challenges that one would face is that, I mean, like, we face quite a lot of challenges. One would be pricing, for instance, right? So the value chain is not necessarily owned by people that empower black entrepreneurs. So the value chain is still in basically very privatization, of which as retail entrepreneurs, what we tend to do is that we are becoming buyers or sellers of, or sales agents of these manufacturers. So the challenges are really in the value chain. So if we can solve a lot of value chain problems, it means that the entrepreneur can also try to survive. It means now we can basically scale, and it means we can also have purchase good at a lower price, so that we can have like greater margins on our pricing. So that would be the challenge.
And how do you think this Meetings Africa 2025 can help address those challenges that we've just stated?
So I think in not so many words, right? I mean, like, this is a great platform for industry to also understand where the entrepreneurs are and what type of products do they have, and where they can also plug in and say, these are the type of products that we need. So I think Meetings Africa also can help with giving us a focus of saying, these are the most products that are needed in the market. Because each and every entrepreneur comes in the marketplace, but they sell things maybe that are not necessarily wanted in the market or that can even scale. So I think ideally it also gives us an idea of where is the demand and how do we meet it as entrepreneurs. But now industry must also try to say, how do we open up the market in a sense that how do we create an opportunity for the entrepreneurs to commerce better, right? Because it's quite difficult. Imagine I have a purchase order of 50,000 Rand and I still have to find money to fund this purchase order. So it means the problem is somewhere in the developmental space of entrepreneurs, right? So we can't afford loans, we can't afford credit. So it means now you have to run around and look for grants, of which they take time, and you still need to fulfill a purchase. So it's quite. Those are some of the details that I think need more focus.
Noni, Lebohang has just stated some of the challenges that he faces as a retail entrepreneur. I wonder how you will be able to sort of address those challenges within the Meetings Africa 2025. And while on that, how does the Meetings Africa 2025 align with Africa's historic hosting of the G20 Summit in November 2025?
I think Meetings Africa is a good platform for SMMEs. If you look at it, we've got 60% of the exhibitors are SMMEs that are within the value chains of meetings, including retail is part of that. So Lebohang is right. They will be exhibiting what they can offer to their hosted buyers, but not to the hosted buyers only, but to other exhibitors, because other exhibitors are from the other African countries, and some of the products that they want are being channeled through the SMMEs. And I think the developmental aspect is very, very important in terms of making sure that we assist the SMMEs in selling their products, not only selling in terms of exhibiting, but making a transaction and making sure that the PO that they have can be converted into a promissory note of some sort. And I think GEP on our side, which is the Gauteng Enterprise Propeller, is working hard in making sure that they give those loans. If it's not a loan, they help them with that promissory note. But in terms of the alignment with the G20 summit, which is one of the exciting summits that is happening in the country, the nice thing about this summit is that it's not only the summit of the president at the end of the year, but we are hosting throughout the year different summits that will lead up to the G20 summit. And it gives opportunities for established businesses and also SMMEs to work and make sure that they elevate and give quality conferences and events within the destination. And in a conference, there's a lot of elements. It's not the stage, the sound. There's other activities besides speakers themselves. There's photographers. So things that you would think they are not needed. So I think G20 helps us as a destination to elevate Africa's profile and give Africa a spotlight on what excellent platforms and promotions within the hosting of large-scale and international events in the destination. Not only Africa, but South Africa.
Indeed.
And and the last thing is that there's going to be collaborative opportunities within the African nation that streamline the high-profile hosting. Therefore, it assists us a lot in the enhancement of our infrastructure and making sure that we maintain it through technology too.
Lebohang, you are a case study here, and thanks so much again for coming through. But let's talk about the opportunities that you see for entrepreneurs like yourself in the tourism and business event sectors. And how can Meetings Africa 2025 really help facilitate connections and collaborations. She just talked about collaborations, and I'm sure that's one thing that we really want to see happen within that space.
I think the ease of trade, and especially with different African countries, right, would be something that one would look out for. And if you look at countries like Kenya, so I travel quite a lot in Kenya, right? And if you look at Kenya and how they've opened up their entrepreneurship for the local communities, it's quite easy for them to trade, right? So there's no monopolized industries, or even the monopolized industries, they are there, but they're not as hectic as ours. So that's why entrepreneurs can create products and they can get into market quickly. So I think within the South African landscape, the one thing that we can look at is basically to say, how do we use tools like developmental tools like the African Continental Free Trade, for instance, right? Which speaks to how we trade with different countries as well. Because it's quite expensive to send a parcel to even like your Kenya, right? So and it speaks to tourism, because some of the stuff that we take, we are basically taking our cultural experience to Kenya. I'm wearing a Kenya band now, but I'm not wearing a South African band. It means that there's something wrong in how they receive our products, but when we receive their products, we have to. So it's more attractive for our market to purchase their stuff. But with these, it's how do we brand the South African brand better, and especially from an entrepreneurship perspective, with the products that South Africans are producing themselves. Because it does not make sense that we are constantly producing or we are constantly taking things outside of the country and we are repackaging them for sales outside. So it does not necessarily speak to the industrialization of economies in this country. So I think they can basically, how do we open up the local market? How do we increase manufacturing in South Africa? And I think manufacturing is a big one. We have a guy in our hub where he has created watches that are, but he struggles to just package and take them out and go to market.
All right. Lebogang, thanks so much for your time. Noni, thank you indeed for sharing your thoughts with us. That was Lebogang Likojani, founder of Rethink Africa, young retail entrepreneur, as well as Noni Gubeka, who is head of Conventions and Events Bureau at the Gauteng Tourism Authority. You are watching SABC News live from Johannesburg. Your headlines this hour. Eskom has announced that stage 6 load shedding was implemented at 1:30 a.m. due to multiple unit trips at Camden Power Station and will continue until further notice. 3 deceased SANDF soldiers have been laid to rest in Limpopo and Free State provinces respectively today. They are part of 14 soldiers who were killed during a peacekeeping mission in the eastern DRC last month. Freedom Plus leader Dr. Peter Groenewald has stepped down as the leader of the party. Welcome to the second hour of the week ahead here on the SABC News channel. We are live with you from our Johannesburg studios. I'm Mahikeng. You're still welcome to participate in our conversations. Give us a call on our studio number is 011-714-0680 or 81 or 82. It's an honor to have you with us at this hour. Ishmael Malatlehi was laid to rest in Tabanchu in the Free State. Malatlehi is also one of the 14 SANDF soldiers who perished in the conflict-ridden Democratic Republic of Congo. The soldiers were caught in the crossfire between DRC army forces and M23 rebels 3 weeks ago. His family says the arrival of the remains of their loved one has brought some relief and closure as they can now finally be able to deal with his passing. The family says Malatlehi loved serving his country and was dedicated. Let's now cross to Kamohelo Siki for more. A very good afternoon to you, Kamohelo. What's the latest with regards to the funeral service today?
Yes, indeed, Mahikeng, we are here. In fact, we are at the cemetery here in Tabanchu, where the burial is actually ongoing. We saw earlier today the vibrancy of the military, if I may put it that way, where actually the soldiers were singing to celebrate Staff Sergeant Molahle, Ishmael Molahle, and obviously all the speakers talking about his commitment to the military. But I just want to bring in the person that he was reporting directly to, who is Major Miriam Skosana. She's the acting officer commanding for the 1 Parachute Battalion. Major, talk to us about Staff Sergeant Molahle, the kind of person that he was, the way all the speakers were describing him, you know, committed to peacekeeping, committed to the service.
Ma'am, first and foremost, on behalf of 1 Parachute Battalion, I would like to thank the family of Staff Sergeant Molahle for his sacrifice. The member has given his strength, his youth days, and his time to serve our country. Staff Sergeant Molahle was a very kind person. And when I check in the command line where we were working, every commander would love or would have loved to work with him or to have him in combat. Staff Sergeant Molahle is one of a kind when it comes to Georgia. He was foremost a paratrooper. He is one of the commanders, he was one of the followers in his commanders that knew what to do every time when you give him a command. Staff Sergeant Molahle was one of a kind that reminded us as commanders that when we give command, we also have to earn respect, because he always gave us his respect. Staff Sergeant Molahle will never be forgotten in 1 Parachute Battalion. He's one of the members that I managed to train when he arrived in the unit, and I managed to be his instructor. Even though I became his instructor as young as I was, he always gave me his respect.
Talk to us about the fact that this was not actually his first deployment. We understand that he's also been to Burundi, and he was also in the Central African Republic.
Yes, it's indeed true. He was in many operations. Staff Sergeant Molahle, he is a 1991 intake. You can imagine, at that time I was 5 years old. And how he portrayed himself, his character, his behavior is one of a kind that it reflected the national flag, which is we are the diverse country. He was a diverse person at all times.
Thank you so much for your time. I'm just quickly also going to bring in the Premier of the Free State, Makwinle Tshwamatai, just to talk to us about the Staff Sergeant today. Premier, you are here today talking to the laws that the Free State has had. You spoke about how we should honor the legacy of Staff Sergeant Molahle. Can you just talk to us to that message?
Yes, today I decided to address the message to all the families that has lost their sons. We have really lost as a Free State, as a country, but mainly the loss is within the families themselves. As we are talking today, we are talking to women that are going to change their names, those that are going to be called widows today. So it's one of those sad moments today for the Free State and the country at large when we really look at these 14 sons of the soil who lost their lives.
Premier, just to put it into context, we've heard messages from the senior officers of the military yesterday and today, talking about how the military has kind of weakened because of politics. Can you just talk to us about that?
No, that question I think will be relevant to SANDF. But if you listen to what the chief yesterday said, he raised important issues on how to educate not only politicians, but to educate communities about the SANDF itself. So it's very important that we build that relationship. In the Free State, I was just making reference yesterday to some of the people that we had a good relationship. If you recall, the late Ntate Mahikeng We used to call SANDF to be part of the programs, adopt a school where when we have this career expos, they are able to come and teach the learners about SANDF. It's very important that we reignite and really revive that relationship so that we build this kind of relationship and people will also learn and understand what is South African National Defence Corps. From provincial government point of view, we do have a relationship with SANDF. When you refer to Welisizwe bridges that are being built in our province by National Public Works, they are building together with SANDF. We got engineers in SANDF who have dedicated themselves in assisting this government. So it's just that the emphasis that General made yesterday, Chief said it's communication. Let's make our people understand and understand their role and understand our safety, that without these people, our borders, guarding our borders, wouldn't be where we are.
Thank you so much, Premier, for your time today. Mahikeng, as you can hear in the background, I'm just going to quickly ask my colleague Ritabile to pan just so that you can see this vibrancy that I was talking to you about earlier. You know, how these people, the soldiers are singing and just vibrant, you know, with their songs, just paying homage to their colleague, just ensuring that, you know, his legacy, his honor, all the messages that are being shared with the family today, that the family can actually get a sense of how things are happening when their father, when the husband is not there. These are the scenes that are currently taking place in Tabanchu, here at the Selosesha Cemetery. But I just also want to bring in Sergeant General, Lieutenant General H.P. Mahapa, just to talk to us a little bit about his message that he shared this morning. I would say putting strong words across, calling for a much strengthened SANDF. You spoke about the involvement of politics. You spoke about how our borders are porous at the moment. You also said, you know, there used to be an SANDF that would not be attacked by its neighbors, but the attack would come from afar, you know, if any attack would come. Yes. Just talk to us about that and your call to ensure that the military is strengthened and taken back to its former glory.
Yes. No, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Well, indeed, the military is one of the powers of the state to ensure that its citizens are safe, happy, and they live peacefully. Now, the military, as I said earlier, that is given the mandate to defend and protect. Now, I gave an example of any home that if you want your home to be secured, you put a proper fence, you will even have dogs that can bite. Now, a lot has been said about the South African National Defence Force in the newspapers, in the news, that they are not properly funded. And it's not a secret, that is the truth. Now we are saying to the politicians, especially now that the nation has rallied together after the loss of our troops, that let's keep this momentum and ensure that we have a defense force that will be able to defend and protect this country. And we will keep saying that until that is done.
To the debate that the soldiers who are still in DRC should come back home, yes. What do you say to that?
Well, at the moment, you will know that the SADC as well as the East African community have an agreement that there should be a negotiated ceasefire. Now we're saying once the politicians and the regions have decided that they must come back, we will definitely come back. And we support that. As long as the regions, both regions agree that there should be a negotiated settlement. Until then, our troops remain where they are.
Thank you so much for your time. Mahikeng, that was Sergeant General, Lieutenant General H.P. Mapaha. I think I may have mispronounced his name earlier to say Mahapa. It is actually Mapaha. Mahikeng, as you can hear in my background, you know, the singing, the celebration does not stop. But with that, it's back to you in studio.
And that singing speaks to the solemnity of the occasion, one last time that red carpet rolled out for Staff Sergeant Ishmael Molatlehi. And of course, staying with that story, SANDF soldier, rifleman Calvin Moagi, has been laid to rest at Lorraine Cemetery in Khasikororo outside Zanin today. Moagi is one of the 14 SANDF soldiers killed in the eastern DRC. 9 of the 14 soldiers come from Limpopo. Emmanuel Baloyi has more on that story.
Hundreds of community members had filled up the Kudu sports ground in Lorraine village in Khasikororo outside Zanin to be part of Rifleman Louis Calvin Moagi's final send-off. Today, that stadium saw the funeral service of Rifleman Moagi get underway, where it was attended by a lot of community members, dignitaries, as well as members of the South African National Defence Force. This was a full military funeral where we saw Calvin Louis Moagi being bided farewell. Moagi is part of the 14 South African soldiers who were killed in the DRC. Among those in attendance was MEC of Cooperative Governance here in Limpopo, Mr. Baskopo Magamo, and he's joining us now. MEC, thank you so much for your time. I see you are flagged by the Executive Mayor of the Mopani District Municipality and the Mayor of the local municipality. Thank you so much for your time on SABC News. You gave a heartwarming tribute to Rifleman Moagi. He's one of 8. Limpopo seems to have suffered most of the loss. As a province, how do you react to this?
Well, you will know that we have suffered the most as the province because 8 of our soldiers out of the 14 are from our province, Limpopo. That's why, as a provincial government, we felt it necessary to make sure that we go to support with the families. I was also impressed by the fact that even the district and the local mayor have been with the family since the 25th when the message came to the country about the people who have lost. So I'm happy that government was seen to be supporting these families right from the local, the district, and including the provincial government. And that's one thing that we say. I think Rifleman Calvin Moagi died for a good cause, and I think for peacekeeping mission that we have as a country stood for and will still continue. And I've seen young soldiers who are prepared to still continue making sure that there is peace within the SADC and even Africa as a continent.
Let me see, I've also seen a lot of residents. People of Limpopo really came in numbers to support not just this family, but other families were also bidding farewell to our members. Even today, I saw them. But even throughout, this has been a funeral, meaning period that has happened for almost a month. What would you say to the people of Limpopo? Because for the first time, South Africa got to see how they support each other in mourning.
Well, you will understand that this was a hero's send-off. Everybody, where it's happening, whether you talk about Tlaniki, you talk about Kuvi, Skinot, all of our people have gone out to make sure that our heroes does get a very dignified funeral. And we are also happy the way the South African National Defence Force has conducted the support that they have given to the families. And I think that's what we expect to our heroes.
Thank you so much, MEC. That's the MEC of Cooperative Governance in Limpopo, who was here representing the provincial executive in bidding farewell to Rifleman Moagi. As we stated earlier, there were 8 soldiers who came from Limpopo. The first one was laid to rest last week Sunday at his home in Tlaniki. Yesterday, we saw 5 others being laid to rest at their homes, at the various homes across the province. Today, we do know that there was this funeral service of Rifleman Moagi alongside the funeral service of Rifleman Richard Chokwe at his home at Ramatlala. From myself and my colleagues who have been keeping this story, updating it regularly for you, we bid farewell to you.
Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us here on the SABC News channel. Now, let's have a look at stories that made headlines in the Sunday newspapers, shall we? And we start with the Sunday Times this afternoon. Headlined, Enoch ignored warnings on VAT increase. That's a big story, of course, of the week. Sunday Times sub-headline in that story, Inside Budget Fiasco. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana, desperate to plug the gaping hole in South Africa's fiscus, ignored warnings from all sides that his plan to hike VAT was doomed to failure. That's Sunday Times reporting, and of course saying that sources in both the ANC and the DA told the Sunday Times Godongwana was repeatedly told that his proposal for a 2 percentage point increase to 17% would not fly. And they also have another complemented sub-headline there. They just don't see eye to eye. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana snubbed overtures from SARS Commissioner Edward Gisvedder to discuss proposals to improve tax collection on several occasions ahead of this week's unprecedented postponement of the 2 trillion rand budget. This emerged this week as senior government officials from multiple departments lifted the lid on the extent of the tensions between the two. That's one of the leading stories in the Sunday Times. Now let's have a look at another one that's found in the Sunday Tribune rather. They're also leading with that budget speech story there. Headlined, call for funds to be found elsewhere. They are actually saying that stability key to averting fiscal crisis, say former finance ministers Ntanzanene and Malusi Gigaba, who have shed light on the unique political factors that contributed to the postponement of the national budget. On Wednesday, Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana was forced to delay the announcement of the national budget until March the 12th after the cabinet failed to agree on the measures he had proposed. National Assembly Speaker Togo Didiza said the lack of consensus may have been linked to the 2 percentage point increase in VAT, which Godongwana was expected to announce. According to Sunday Tribune, Gaba said the postponement of the budget was an unprecedented situation. You'll find that full story in the Sunday Tribune. Now we move on to the next newspaper headline that is found in the Sunday World. Plot to kill Meyiwa top cop. Brigadier Bongani Kininda has been warned to watch his back for arresting suspected killers of slain Fanafana captain, the real mastermind behind the murder of former Fanafana and Orlando Pirates captain Senzo Meyiwa. Is allegedly targeting the lead investigator, Brigadier Bongani Kininda, with a plot to kill him. That's what Sunday World is reporting there. Kininda, who is the head of the SABC cold case unit, led the investigation team that arrested the 5 men accused of killing Meyiwa, has been warned to watch his back as he's the next target. Kininda has had his security breached, including his personal information, home address and personal number included, posted online. The brigadier has also received recorded death threats from unknown individuals and numbers. That chilling story found in the Sunday World, and those are the stories making headlines in the Sunday newspapers. Now to this, Freedom Front Plus leader Dr. Pieter Groenewald has stepped down as the leader of the party. He has handed over the party's presidency to Dr. Corne Mulder. Party spokesperson Wouter Wessel says Groenewald was not available for re-election. The party is holding an elective conference in Pretoria this weekend.
Dr. Groenewald did step down this morning as leader. He did not avail himself again to be elected, and he said he has reached the end of the season in which he led the Freedom Front Plus. He became leader in 2016, and he decided that it's time to, at this stage, focus on his portfolio as minister and his role in cabinet and in the government of national unity, and that he gives over the reins of the party to a new leader, and that new leader, Dr. Corne Mulder, was elected uncontested.
Okay, and there were no other reasons that he gave besides the fact that he just wanted to concentrate on his ministerial portfolio?
No, that's the reason that he gave, that he believes that it's now time to have a leader that at this stage can focus on renewal of the party, and that he can focus exclusively on his portfolio and the important work that he's doing in correctional services and also in cabinet, and that it will be the best and in the interest of the Freedom Front Plus and the country at the end of the day to do it in this fashion.
Now, Germans are going to the polls after an intense election campaign dominated by their country's faltering economy and a succession of deadly attacks that have made migration and security a focal issue. The country's rival political leaders will take their fight for votes right to the last minute in a push that reflects the pivotal nature of Sunday's election, not just for their country, but for Europe as a whole. Conservative frontrunner Friedrich Merz has told supporters that under his leadership, Germany would take responsibility in Europe, and that the far-right alternative for Germany, that is AfD, would be consigned to the political margins once more. Joining us now for the latest is our correspondent in Germany, Trent Murray. Trent, please tell us who are the frontrunners and what do they stand for?
Well, polls have officially opened here, as you rightly say. We're at the Allegro Elementary School. It's one of 2,200 voting stations in the German capital, Berlin. But of course, this is the scene playing out right across the country, this crucial election. Really, we are watching 3 or 4 big names. I think first we have to mention the Conservative leader, Friedrich Merz. He has maintained a pretty strong lead in the polls throughout this election. He's the leader of the Christian Democratic Union. That's the party of former Chancellor Angela Merkel. I think he goes in tonight as the real favourite. Then, of course, you've got Olaf Scholz, the incumbent Chancellor from the left-wing Social Democrats. He, it would appear to be struggling. His poll numbers are quite low. He's currently 3rd in the polls, but he's certainly not going down without a fight. And then you've also got the far right, as you say, the AfD, Alternative for Germany. They are currently 2nd in the polls, really under their leader, Alice Weidel. They've seen their fortunes turn quite positively from their perspective. The difficulty for them, though, will be that the other parties are saying that even if they do get a good vote tonight, a good vote share, the other parties won't work with them in trying to form a coalition. So look, a lot to watch tonight, a huge moment, not just for Germany, but for Europe as a whole. This is, of course, Europe's biggest economy. So what happens here really will have a ripple-on effect across the European Union.
And do you think the polls will reveal Friedrich Merz, the 69-year-old conservative leader, as being in pole position to become Germany's next chancellor?
Well, that's certainly what the polls indicate, and if those polls translate tonight in terms of vote share, then he will be in prime position to try and form a coalition government. The challenge will be his party will not get over 50% on its own. That is something that just does not really happen here under the multi-party system, and so he will have to likely enter negotiations with some other parties that have quite different priorities, different ideologies. You could even see a Conservative and Green Party coalition. I mean, we're probably getting ahead of ourselves. The voters are still casting their ballots, but that's certainly the way the tea leaves are being read right now, that he seems to be the favourite. But I think the big question tonight will be just sort of how well the AfD does. I know many of the other parties here have been concerned about their rise on things like anti-immigrant rhetoric and campaigning on issues against renewable energy, for example, and law and order. Just how much of that message will resonate with a growing pool of voters here, we will have to wait and see. That first exit poll will be released at 6 p.m. Central Africa time, and that's when we'll get a really good indication on the direction of travel.
And Trent, I'm sure you've had him making bold statements or promises saying he will fix most problems in 4 years. Is this not a tall order for Europe's biggest economy and a creaking infrastructure?
Yeah, well, I mean, the two big issues at this campaign have been the economy and immigration. I mean, on the economic front, the country is not doing very well. It's about to have its third year of contraction. That would represent the worst economic period since the end of World War II. And for Chancellor Olaf Scholz, he's having a lot of that blame pinned on him by his political opponents. Friedrich Merz is trying to use his conservative credentials to say, look, we are the party of low taxes and pro-business. We'll be the ones to try and turn this all around. But I mean, the simple fact is that Germany, like many countries in Western Europe, are having a bit of a moment of reflection and wondering whether the sort of economic success that they've seen over the past century is something that they can continue to achieve because of competition now from places like China. Just look at automobiles as one example. So yeah, whoever wins tonight will have a lot of work to do, not just implementing the policies that they have made on the campaign trail, but we also have to remember they have heard some of that rhetoric from President Trump. They know the EU is in his crosshairs when it comes to tariffs, even a potential trade war. It will likely be up to a German chancellor alongside some other big European leaders to try and deal with that coming uncertain waters that we appear to be facing.
Yeah, I mean, talking about victories, Trent, if Merz Christian Democrats, CDU, win, will he need to forge an alliance with at least one other party, and which is most likely to be, and why?
This is a really good question. They will have to form a coalition in order to get a majority, but the question right now is, will they be able to do that with just one other party? Much of that will depend on the vote shares of that other party. They could enter coalition, hypothetically, with the Social Democrats, the party of Olaf Scholz. They could enter a coalition with the environmentalist Green Party. The challenge will be the fact that they have vowed not to work with the far right. They are straight away effectively sidelining about 20% of the vote, we anticipate. And so the arithmetic becomes difficult, but it is not impossible to see a situation where the far right does very well tonight, and that then leaves less votes on the table for the remaining parties to work with, and it could mean they will require 3 parties to form a coalition. That will be difficult, the negotiations will be difficult, and one would imagine the government then will have some difficulty governing, just given the vast differences of opinion when it comes to key policies that would eventually sit around that cabinet table.
What about Olaf Scholz, Social Democrats, I mean, whose government collapsed late last year? What are their prospects?
Look, I think for Olaf Scholz, this will be a difficult day in many ways. I mean, he is a first-term chancellor going for a second term. He followed Angela Merkel, who was in power for 16 years. Extraordinarily big shoes to follow, but it would appear that his government, which was a 3-party government and actually collapsed early because of internal disagreements, that government is just one that the German voters haven't been pleased with. Certainly the polls indicate that. And so he is on the cusp of being a one-term chancellor based on how those votes turn out tonight. I think he has faced a very uncertain term in office. He, of course, had the war in Ukraine to contend with. That caused major security concerns, but also economic problems, given that Russian gas supplies were switched off to Germany in the wake of the Ukraine war, which meant a lot of industry here has struggled with high energy prices, high inflation. And, you know, for Olaf Scholz, he probably didn't anticipate that in his first term of office, but when you take the job, when you become the Chancellor, you have to take responsibility. And I think that's what we are seeing today. A lot of voters not best pleased with him. But in saying that, SPD sources are telling me today that they're hoping maybe there'll be a bit of an incumbency boost. The fact that he is the sitting Chancellor could help them get a few extra runs on the board. We will have to wait and see.
And Ketia Adler, what is the sentiment there? Is the far right for a breakthrough from what you're seeing?
Look, I think regardless of what happens with the vote, they have certainly come into this campaign with a huge burst of energy. They are emboldened, they are energised, and they feel like they are here to stay, regardless of what their vote share is. And we anticipate it probably will be at historic highs. They will then be a firm fixture in German politics. Now, this is for a party that was really on the fringes for a long time. They didn't have huge numbers of MPs, but they have steadily grown over the past decade. And after tonight, if they do come out as the second party, then they set themselves up to be the official opposition. The leader of the AfD, Alice Weidel, will become the German opposition leader, which is something that was quite unthinkable, I think, even just 5 to 10 years ago. So, look, there's a lot to see in all of this, but this is a trend that we're seeing in a lot of parts of Western Europe. Issues like immigration, law and order, safety on the streets, high energy prices because of renewable energy projects, all of these issues, they really hammer them on the campaign trail. They hammer them at their rallies, and they are obviously resonating with a growing number of people. And so I think for what we're seeing here, this is a conversation which isn't just happening in Germany. It's one that they'll be having in Brussels. Europe will be watching all of this because, as I say, what happens tonight will undoubtedly have a huge impact on the rest of the European Union.
Trent, thank you. That was SABC News correspondent in Germany, Trent Murray, unpacking the Germany elections as Germans are going to the polls after an intense election campaign dominated by their country's faltering economy and a succession of deadly attacks that have actually dealt a huge blow in terms of the immigration in that country. Now to this. Now to this, President Cyril Ramaphosa says the G20 Leaders Summit that was convened on African soil for the first time showed the growing importance of the continent in global economic, political and environmental discussions. This as the country hosted the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting in Nasrec in Johannesburg last week. The G20 consists of the world's largest and developing economies. South Africa was the only African country that joined the group, and it was followed by the African Union in India, New Delhi in 2023.
A number of international envoys were part of the G20 Foreign Ministers meeting in Johannesburg. For South Africa, this was an enormous opportunity to champion the cause of Africa and other developing regions.
We've often been a continent that has been relegated to the back, and I was quite frontal in saying that this is the time. The G20 gives us, as Africans, the moment to put our issues on the global agenda, and I do believe that we've got a cohort of countries in the G20 and those that will be invited who will be willing to listen to Africa's story, to Africa's narrative, which will not only be expressed by South Africa, but by the African Union itself as a member, as well as by those countries on our continent that we are going to invite. And believe you me, we are going to invite quite a few of them to come to be part of particularly the Leaders Summit.
But the top diplomat of one of the powerful economies in the world, the United States, Marco Rubio, did not attend. Instead, Washington, D.C. was represented by a second-in-command at the diplomatic mission in Pretoria.
I spoke to President Trump soon after he was elected and congratulated him and informed him or reminded him that we are going to be having the G20 here and they are going to have theirs the following year, so we will hand over to them. And we spoke a bit about that. We also spoke about a number of South Africans who he holds in high regard, particularly in the golfing field, and he being a better golfer than I am, he said, well, then maybe when I come, we should play golf together.
Geopolitical issues featured high on the agenda, including the Russia-Ukraine conflict and the situation in Gaza.
Here I am in South Africa at the G20, and it's very good to see right across the nations represented here solidarity and support for Ukraine, and of course a desire to see peace, but a negotiated peace with Ukraine at its heart and on terms acceptable to Vladimir Zelensky. I look forward to the meeting that my Prime Minister will have with President Trump later on next week.
Concerning the ongoing conflict and wars in Africa, the Middle East and Europe, the meeting reiterated that all states must act in a manner consistent with the purpose and principles of the UN Charter. Affirmed that all parties in conflicts must comply with their obligations under international law, including international humanitarian law and international human rights law. Guided by these principles, there was agreement to support all efforts towards a just peace in Ukraine, Palestine, Sudan, the DRC, and other major conflicts across the globe.
It was also an opportunity for foreign affairs ministers to discuss pressing issues.
We should also recognize that in a polarized global situation, our two countries have worked hard to preserve and protect the G20 as an institution. This in itself testifies to the importance of international cooperation.
Other African nations are also part of the discussions.
We would rather that Africa and the African Union and other platforms that are owned by Africa and African countries be utilized in solving these problems. And when we prefer solutions that others outside of Africa support those solutions, they tend to be more effective as opposed to exogenous solutions to African problems. So we just concluded recently Peace and Security Council meeting where we deliberated on the conflict in the Sudan and Eastern Congo. So we expect that other members of the G20 and others outside of Africa would support the solutions that we're preferring. Certainly we need them to play a role, but let the solutions organically emanate from Africa as opposed to being applied from the outside, because we know where it hurts the most.
Over 130 meetings will be held across the country, and this will culminate in November when the G20 Leaders Summit will be hosted in Johannesburg. Khalihle Khumalo, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Welcome back to the week ahead, and thanks for staying with us. Now, the first group of Chinese tourists arrived in the country on a new visa system called the Trusted Tour Operator Scheme. It is aimed at the Chinese and Indian tourist market. This enables tour guides to apply for tourism visas in groups, making the process much easier. Where previously the processing of a visa took several weeks, this process speeds it up to 3 days.
A warm welcome to the mother city. The visa process that went live in mid-February delivered its first group of 30 Chinese tourists to South Africa.
This new process has actually speeded it up to the point of our visa, which was the first one to come through, was processed in 6 hours as opposed to 3 weeks. I mean, that's just unbelievable.
With the relaxed, seamless visa regime now for India and China, this is the result of it today. Hardly a week later, after the Trusted Tourist Scheme came into effect on the 12th of February, people are here. And that's exactly what we want to see, the growth of arrivals coming to South Africa. So we're very happy.
By embracing digital transformation, as we've said, this is our main goal in Home Affairs under the Government of National Unity, we've digitized that entire process. So what happens now is instead of the individual tourist going to visit a South African mission or some kind of office, the tour operator themselves gets everyone's information, uploads all of that through an online portal. Our team is sitting on the other side to adjudicate everything online, and then immediately the outcome is emailed back to them. A process that in some cases, I mean, there were extreme cases, weeks, months, people missing flights. It's now taking less than 6 hours, all because of digital transformation.
The Trusted Tour Operator Scheme has 65 large tour operators from China, India and South Africa. Zaleen Merrington, SABC News, Cape Town.
Staying with us, story, over 100 Australian and New Zealand trade and media representatives crisscrossed the country for SA Tourism's Mega Lekker Escape. The flagship event exposed the tourists to immersive itineraries across South Africa, culminating in a two-day visit to the Palace of the Lost City at the world-renowned Sun City Resort in the northwest. The initiative is designed to showcase South Africa's diverse tourism offerings while facilitating impactful engagements between media, trade partners and SA Tourism's global PR team.
A tourism extravaganza showcasing African heritage and unique sightings found only on the southern tip of Africa.
We travelled to Rhino Ridge in Shishlui Mfolozi National Park, so one of the oldest game reserves where we had 3 nights. So absolutely amazing. Rhinos, 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 and we were really lucky to experience not only rhinos but the community.
My highlight, it was actually amazing. It's hearing that munch and crunch of a leopard chewing, eating, feasting on a fresh kill of an impala.
The country's coastal offerings were also a sight to behold.
We headed across to Boulders, to the penguins, which was beautiful to see. And what topped it off was in those jeeps, open air, no roof, on the Cape Peninsula via the Chapman's Peak, all the way back to Cape Town. It was absolutely amazing.
Travelling between the ocean and the fynbos, it was an amazing experience, wind blowing through our hair.
According to SA Tourism, the timing of the event, ahead of South Africa hosting the G20 summit, underscores the nation's leadership in leveraging tourism for economic recovery, social impact, and global collaboration.
South Africa's got these icons, the Kruger National Park in Cape Town and others, but I think what we were trying to achieve by holding this particular Mega Lekker Escape and this initiative is to show to the travel trade the diversity that is South Africa, the diversity of product and experiences, that you don't only have to come to South Africa for those iconic things. There's much to be had and much to be experienced in the smaller towns and in the lesser known experiences, because often in those hidden gems you find that authenticity and that connection. And it's important for us to take the uniqueness of South Africa and package it in a way that actually eliminates the competition, because there is no other country in the world like South Africa.
The number of Australians visiting the country increased by 14.3% in 2024 from the previous year, while New Zealand has surpassed pre-COVID-19 pandemic figures with a 25% increase in 2024 arrivals. Sintle Inglihihi, SABC News, Sun City.
Moving to this story now, another date has been set for the Minister of Land Reform and Rural Development, Mzwanele Nyonso, to meet with the Amazulu King, Misuzulu Kazolithini. The meeting aims to resolve the impasse between the King, who is the chairperson of Amazulu Trust, and his board. Since the breakdown of relations between the board and the King, Parliament and the department have been trying to work together to find a resolution. Nyonso told Parliament's Land Reform Portfolio Committee that while this debacle is playing out, his department is unable to properly carry out its mandate of overseeing the trust.
Minister Mzwanele Nyonso says the Amazulu King has made it clear he has no confidence in the Amazulu Trust board, while the board has called for mediation. The hostilities and non-cooperation between the King and the ITB have made it hard for the Department of Land Reform to conduct oversight of the trust.
This sideshow of internal conflict in board has removed the focus on the core business. And I'm saying once, for me, if the committee can also advise and talk on the question of the board itself, once we deal with that and have a board that works with the King and the chairperson or the sole trustee. By the way, the King, who is the chairperson, was very clear. I'm ready to resign as the chairperson and hand over to another chairperson, but on the condition that this board must go.
The department says King Misuzulu overstepped in his role when he suspended the board.
The King and myself, we wanted same thing. But the problem is that I wanted to follow due processes if I dissolve the board. And the King just wanted to dissolve the folk board without following due processes. And we were going to lose that case in court.
Nyonso says the situation has become untenable. He's meeting with the board on the 4th of March, but he has also called on the Portfolio Committee for advice. Abra Barbia, SABC News, Parliament.
People across the world are praying for Pope Francis as the Vatican reported that the Argentina-born pontiff is in critical condition in a Rome hospital. The Vatican says the Pope's health condition has worsened to the point where he received supplemental oxygen and blood transfusions. The 88-year-old Francis, who has double pneumonia, had suffered a prolonged asthma-like respiratory crisis. The Pope was admitted to Rome's Gemelli Hospital on February the 14th after experiencing difficulty breathing for several days. Now, hundreds of people in India's northern Gurugram city gathered to witness a classic and vintage automobile exhibition. Car enthusiasts and collectors soaked in the beauty of the antique automobiles with models including Rolls-Royce, Morris Garages, Aston Martin, among others. The event had judges from various countries including US, Germany, the United Kingdom, Japan, Italy, Canada, Australia, Belgium, France, Poland, Netherlands and Denmark. The 11th edition of 21 Gun Salute's Concord Diligent featured a lineup of at least 125 rare vintage cars and 50 heritage motorcycles. And that's how we wrap up the week ahead right here on the SABC News channel. Up next, SSA Today at the top of the hour from myself, Mahikeng, and the rest of the week ahead team. Thanks so much for watching. Take care.